Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm an addict. I have 5 years clean off all substances, 2.5. I mixed that up. I have 2.5 years clean off all substances, 5 years clean of anything harder than alcohol. My addiction started when I was like 12. I didn't really have any supervision. I was my mom's baby. I just did whatever I wanted. And so I started drinking first, and then one night when I was drinking, I started smoking weed, and that stuff just kind of became the norm, like throughout my middle school years. And LSD was really big when I was in high school, so I did a lot of that. And the first time I knew, like, I was a drug addict, I was 18, and I had stayed up for like 4 days doing coke, and I started throwing up black stuff, and it just like scared the shit out of me. I was like, something's wrong, like normal kids don't do this. So that's when I knew, like, I had a drug problem. So I decided then that I wasn't gonna get high, and for like 10 years, I didn't do anything. And then when I was 28, I got a prescription for Vicodin, and I would just like take half of one and I would be lit, crazy, like flying all around the house. And this lasted for like maybe 90 days, and then it progressively got worse and worse and worse. You know, I went from Vicodin to Percocet to OxyContin, and then when you can't afford, they're $50 a pill, when you can't afford 20 of them a day, you start looking for alternatives, so like meth, heroin, cocaine. It's just like a progression. So do I think marijuana is a gateway drug? For me, absolutely. It lowers your inhibitions. You know, it becomes acceptable to cross that line and do drugs. And I've been to prison more times than I would like to admit. I just did 3.5 years. I've been home for 2. But I went to DOC girls' school when I was 15. I was on probation first, like a lot of you guys. I stole a car when I was 13 from a dealership who let me test drive it. And I took off and I went to Florida. And I got arrested there. I came back, I got put on probation. So like, excellent chance to turn my life around. No, I stole my friend's mom's checkbook, and I wrote like, you know, thousands of dollars in checks and violated probation and went to DOC girls' school for 9 months. And it was a horrible, horrible experience. You're away from your family. Trust me when I tell you, not one of my friends wrote me. Like, my best friend got pregnant. I didn't even know until I came home. Like, nobody wrote me. Nobody gave a shit. The only person that came to see me or put money on my books or anything was my mom. But I thought I had all these great friends. You know, we partied. You know, I always had dope. I was definitely one of, you know, the cool kids. I wasn't like, you know, one of the nerds who did good in school and who have great lives now. I was cool. I always had dope. I always had money. I would always have a car. And so I thought I just had a hell of friends and life was great. And no, when I got down there, nobody wrote me. So from 18 to 28, I didn't use anything. Like, my husband continued to smoke weed, my first husband. He continued to smoke weed, but I couldn't even do that. I was just so scared of going back. Really, like, girls' school kind of changed me. Like, it scared me that much to be away from my family for that long. So, 28, I got the prescriptions. I started using dope when I couldn't afford the OxyContin. Then I altered a prescription. And that was the first time I went to prison. And I was there for, I mean, it wasn't just that. Like, I bonded out on that, committed, like, you know, countless other crimes, unauthorized control of motor vehicles, again, test drove a car and didn't take it back, did all kinds of stuff. And so I went for a year and a half in prison that time and a year in county. And again, like none of my friends wrote me. My ex-husband left me. Did I learn anything there? Yeah, I went through therapeutic community. I was there for like 9 months. I learned some. I talked a big game when I was there, you know, that I was never coming back to prison. I'm never going back. I've learned my lesson. This is it. This is all I'm not going to use when I got out. So when I got out, what was the first thing I did? I started drinking. You know, that's legal. It's socially acceptable. You know, it's not sneaking around to buy it. And then the next thing was smoking weed. And what do I like with my weed? A little cocaine. Then when I do too much cocaine, I'm going to need some heroin to bring me down. And then I've done too much heroin, so I've got to do some coke to get me back up. And it's a vicious cycle. And it took me down again. So I had all these great intentions. I had 9 months of programming to teach me how to live a productive life. And when I got home, I worked none of the program. So I got a new husband. I had a couple years of sobriety with him. But I was just like they say you're a dry drunk when you're clean, but you're not working a program. I was clean. I wasn't working a program. And we had a car accident. I got another prescription, and off I went. And started with, you know, taking my prescriptions as prescribed because I'm an addict. I can't, you know, take more than I'm supposed to. That didn't last long. I mean, within my husband and I both got injured. I shattered my left heel and he broke his sternum. And within the first 2 weeks, I was taking all his pain pills too. And he was in pain, but I'm an addict. I don't care. You know, I'm more important. So within that 2 weeks, I was taking his pain pills too, and that lasted, we got a lot of money from our car accident, so we paid cash for a house and cars, and we really had a good start, you know, to have a good life, and addiction took over. Started shooting up Dilaudid, probably a month and a half after our car accident, and eventually got my husband to do it too. He was never a drug addict before, but misery loves company, and if you're getting high and I'm getting high, you're going to need it as much as I'm going to need it. So that way we have 2 people chasing dope at the same time, where it's not just me. And that's, you know, I know it's a lot of addicts can relate to this, but when you turn someone onto the needle, you ruin their life. And I know several people, and I have so much guilt from that, from thinking about how I have impacted their lives, because the first time you shoot someone up, it's over. They're never going back to snorting the pill or snorting meth. It's pretty much a wrap. If you can feel better in 30 seconds or feel better in an hour, you know, when you're an addict, you're taking the 30-second route. So with this husband, we had a doctor, Dr. Rachael in Fort Wayne, who's now in federal prison because of the things that we did with him. We were writing prescriptions to fraudulent names or people that had insurance but never saw him, and he would sell these prescriptions to me for cash or cocaine. And so my plug for Dilaudid was gone in an instant. We all got arrested. I had a bond, he didn't. I bonded out, the doctor stayed. So now I have to do heroin. And now my husband, because the alternative is being so sick that you literally want to die. It's like the worst flu ever times 100 when you don't have that drug. And that's every drug, you know, that you feel a certain way when you don't have meth. You feel a certain way when you don't have pills. You feel a certain way when you don't have heroin. But any of those, you're only a recreational user for the first week. I mean, literally, if I did heroin for a week right now, I would be dope sick like the next day, or a week later. I would be dope sick, and I would do anything to get that drug. I will rob the stores. I will, steal from my mom, lie to my family. Pawn my wedding ring, never go back and get it. Anything to feel better. And it's not. And then when you get to that point, you're not even getting high. You're just doing it to survive, like just to get out of bed. So I went from taking a Vicodin to taking two, to shooting up heroin, to robbing every place in northern Indiana. I had probably the worst for me was I had a really bad heroin habit, and me and my husband would go to South Bend like 2 or 3 times to pick up heroin. And I would tell him, like on the way there, like, because I would have to stop and rob something, to get the money. And I would be like, I'm going to prison. If I do this, if I hit this lick, I'm going to prison. I'm going back to prison. And he didn't care. He really didn't. And I knew, I predicted it, and I knew too, but it just shows you how powerful this drug is. You don't care. And I knew, like, I'm going back to prison. So, I was like the worst of the worst. Like, I would shoot up with like mud puddle water, toilet water if water wasn't available to dilute it. I have hepatitis C from sharing needles and shooting up. Thank God, I don't have anything else, but most people that do shoot up end up getting it. And I've overdosed. I overdosed at a Taco Bell bathroom in South Bend and was dead. Luckily, somebody else came in and called the cops, and I had to take like 4 shots of Narcan to come out of it. And that's like the 4th or 5th time I've had to have Narcan. I've watched my best friend die and had to think, like, it really crossed my mind. Should I just take her to the hospital, or should I just dump her somewhere? Because I didn't want to get in trouble. Thank God I made the right decision, and she, survived it. But there's just all these horrible things that you do in addiction. And when I sit and think about where my addiction started and where my life went wrong, it was definitely when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, smoking weed, drinking alcohol, being promiscuous, just to be cool, I had a group of like older guys that I hung out with, and I would just do the dumbest shit, to get them what they wanted, just because I wanted to be their friend. Yeah, it was horrible, but I can honestly say I feel like if I would have taken my addiction seriously when I was 12, 13 years old and tried to stay on the right track, like, see, this is where I'm going, and this is where I'm, like, if I knew at 12 that I was going to be a heroin addict at 42, I would have straightened my ass up for real. And, I understand, like, you want to be cool and your friends do it and peer pressure, and I get that, but those people aren't going to matter. Like, the minute you're out of high school, that's not going to matter. What's going to matter is like what kind of education you've had, what you've chosen to do. And I wish, like, I had hindsight, so I could see it. And so now I went back to prison January of 2015, and I got out October of 2018. So almost 4 years. But the one thing that changed in me and that helped me, even when I was in county here, like, oh my gosh, I was a mess. I wasn't taking recovery seriously. I was trafficking with a staff member who ended up losing her job, ruining her life. You know, we would make hooch and drink it, do all kinds of stupid shit. So when I got to prison, I was like, really? I had like 2 years left of my sentence, because I was wanted in 9 counties. When all this shit caught up with me, with the prescriptions and with the taking stuff, I was wanted in 9 counties. I went through 3 counties and I came here, and my first phone call home was to my mom, and she was like, I have some really bad news. And I was like, what? She's like, you guys are on the news today. And so they had me and my husband on the news for all this stuff that we did, and I was mortified. It was horrible. It was the worst experience ever, knowing like that my family was so embarrassed of the stuff that I'd done. And you know, you can't tell people, like even like Ink Free News, whatever, you know, they put all this facts about you. You know, I did do it, so it's all facts. But it just, you know, it hurt my family so much because I think they knew like the potential that I had and that I am a good person. But you know, I wasn't then. And I try to tell my mom that, like when she gets upset, she's like, I just wish they could see your heart. And I'm like, but I'm not that person right now. You know, I did all this stuff. Everything they're saying about me is true. This is all facts. So I was kind of, when I got to county here and I heard that, it's a little bit of a wake-up call. I started to kind of change my thinking after I had to stay in Kosciuszko County Jail for 18 months before they sent me to prison. Towards the end of my 18 months, like something started to change in me. Like I just knew that I did not want to live like that anymore. Like I didn't want to be sick. I didn't want to rely on dope. I didn't want to hang out with dirtbags. Like I wanted a home, like normal stuff, like a home and a car and a dog and normal stuff. And so I started reading my Bible and just made these little changes in my heart, you know, here and there. And when I got to prison, like my first or second night there, I was like, this is my 3rd time here. You know, I'm you know, almost 40 years old. Like, what if I died tomorrow? Like, what would my family say about me? She went to prison 3 times. And, you know, she's a piece of shit. And don't leave your purse around her, you know, or don't leave your pills around her. And so I say that I had a spiritual awakening because when I was laying on my bunk, and you know, you can't call home for like the first 30 days or whatever until you get your phone list approved, and you can't get emails and you can't get phone, it's nothing, it's you and that's it. And so I was laying on my bunk and I was prayed to God. I was like, please just remove all these desires from my heart, like heal me from the inside out, make me a different person, please. And the whole time I was in prison, I just took my recovery really seriously. I took my relationship with God really seriously. And I just vowed that I would not go back when I came home. And so I finally got out and I turned my life over to God. And ever since then, I have not used anything, not even alcohol, nothing. I started school 10 days after I came home. So I'm finishing my 2nd year of school, getting my bachelor's degree in human services. I work at Michiana Behavioral Health Center, which is a treatment center for kids and adults. I really was dead set on working with adults because I am an addict. I want to help addicts. But when I can't work with adults, they have me work with the kids, and I've realized I love it because I just see myself and like everybody that comes through our facility, and I have such sympathy for them because I know like the pain of being away from your family. And there's a lot of kids that come in that self-harm, that are suicidal, that are using, and I wanna help them. And I try to explain to them, a lot of them, especially the ones that are there for using drugs, a lot of them talk to me more than any of the other ones because I've been through it. And like we had a kid who took LSD, and he had a bad reaction to it. And so for like a week, his parents didn't know what was wrong with him. They thought he was having like a psychotic break. And so they brought him to our facility. This was just like a month ago. And he would not talk to anybody. He wouldn't get out of his bed. So finally he was in the hallway taking a break from one of his classes. And like the whole facility knew why he was there. And so I got to talk to him, and I'm like, can I just tell you my experience, with LSD? And he was like, and I became his favorite because I could relate to what he's going through. So I try to like share with them, what I've done and how I've turned my life around. And I don't want to be preachy either. I can only tell you what works for me. I've done recovery, I've done being dry, I've done going without, and this is the only thing that's ever stuck in my life, is turning everything over to God and completely surrendering to what He wants. But I wish that I would listen to somebody when I was your guys' age, because I would love to have had hindsight. I've wasted all this time, and I'm not unique. There's so many, a lot of the heroin addicts that you talk to, their addiction started with a prescription, something legal that they got from the doctor, and end up, just like me. So that's my story, and